Hello and welcome to Space for Faith. I'm your host, Matt. Today will just be an episode with me, no guest today, but we do have a guest for our next episode, and that's our guest, Alan, who I really enjoyed speaking with and look forward to sharing with you. But today, for this episode, I want to talk to you a little bit about my blog, and I'll just tell you that I'm not making my blog has no advertisements on it. I've been paying to maintain the website out of my, discretionary income, and I'm not making any money off the blog. So I'm just plugging it because it's what I've created and I want to share it with you. And I also have the agenda behind it was to help encourage people to reach out to their elected officials to encourage the process of disclosure. So there is a purpose to the blog other than just sharing my thoughts, but I'm not at present making any money off of the blog. I'm not making any money off of this podcast either, as you probably have. If you've listened to the other episodes, you've noticed that I don't have any advertising as of yet. So this is just something I'm doing because it's interesting to me and because I have a thought about some agendas that I would like to move forward, like the disclosure and also to help inform my own faith about this phenomenon and come to a better understanding about the world around me. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead and talk about my blog. So just initially, it's UAP, so, for unidentified aerial phenomenon, but the website is UAPactionplan.com. It's all lowercase, there's no dashes, there's no spaces, there's no special characters. UAPactionplan.com. And you'll, when you get to my website, there's a famous UFO photo at the top, and it says UA Action Plan, it's time for disclosure. And then I have several blog posts. And to be honest, I haven't posted that much. I think I started blogging in 2022, and I've done maybe 8 posts, and they're short and easy reads. But I mean, I've put some thought and effort into them. They're not written by artificial intelligence; they were all written by me. But a couple of ones that I want to point out. One would be, I did, several years ago, I was living in Iowa, and Chuck Grassley was a U.S. Senator, or is a U.S. Senator, from Iowa. A hardworking senator, from what I understand. I was really impressed with him. I felt like, my understanding is that he actually personally responds to all of his correspondence. Now, Iowa's not a really populated state, so it's probably easier for him to do that than it would be for someone like a California senator or a New York senator. But regardless of that, I think he's a very hardworking man. I think he tries really hard to stay in touch with his constituents. And when I received responses from him, I really felt like it was from him, and that he was thoughtful about the responses, not just it wasn't just a canned response. So I had expressed to him my desire for disclosure, and I did receive a response from him, which was really interesting. And so I'd invite you to read my blog post, but I'll kind of summarize some of my thoughts here. It was really interesting because Senator Grassley said this. He said, to date, and this was in October of 2022. And I guess I in retrospect, I received the correspondence from him in November of 2020, but I wrote the blog post in October of 22. But in November of 2020, at that time, he said, quote, to date, there is no information that has been released by the Department of Defense to confirm the existence of extraterrestrials, period. Security analysts speculate that video released by the Department of Defense of UAPs may potentially reveal the existence of unknown surveillance drones by near-peer competitors. This has not been confirmed by the U.S. government, end quote. So, and I really appreciated him getting back to me about that, but I just have to respectfully disagree with him that I don't know what intelligence he is privy to. He's a United States Senator. I know they have security clearance. But part of me is just like, look, with what Lou Elizondo has said about the phenomenon and what he has referred to as the five observables. So the five observable characteristics of UAPs that put them out of the league of man-made objects. So Lou Elizondo said that these are the five observables, and so I'm going to share those with you now. First, anti-gravity. UFOs seem to be able to generate lift without any visible propellers, wings, or rocket propellant. And this may be a form of anti-gravity that is yet to be discovered by humans. Now, this is all a direct quote from Lou Elizondo. So I'm going to do a little paraphrasing, a little quoting, but this is not me speaking. This is Lou Elizondo and his observations about the five observables. The next is instant acceleration. Many UFOs are observed accelerating extremely quickly beyond any known human object. This acceleration creates massive G-forces that would normally crush any ship or its occupants. The next is hypersonic speed without signatures. So what that means is, you may be familiar that if human-made aircraft or spacecraft travel through the atmosphere at supersonic speeds, meaning faster than the speed of sound through air at sea level, they'll create what's called a sonic boom from the compression. It creates a shock wave and a loud boom. This is why supersonic aircraft were not allowed to travel over land in the day of, like the Concorde, for instance, which was a transcontinental supersonic passenger aircraft. Initially, I think the hope was that this could be used everywhere, but they were so loud that they were actually banned from flying over populated land masses. So they could only really fly transatlantic flights or other, over ocean flights. But so going back to what Lou Elizondo is saying, the UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena, or unidentified anomalous phenomena, seem to be able to travel at hypersonic or supersonic speeds without producing any noticeable sound like a sonic boom. So far as I'm aware, and so far I think as Lou Elizondo is saying that he's aware, there are no human-made aircraft that are capable of such a feat. Now, having said that, just within the last 6 months, there have been a couple of companies, one Boom Supersonic, and then also NASA, are testing transonic, like supersonic or hypersonic aircraft that they'll still generate a noise. It'll be more like a thump than a boom, whatever that means. But they'll be much quieter. They're designed to be much quieter, but they're not soundless or noiseless. Whereas I think some of the UAP phenomenon are traveling at supersonic speeds in the absence of any noise. Normally you'd expect that if something was moving away from you at supersonic speeds, there'd be some type of like sonic boom, like we said, like a thunderclap or something. But evidently people who are observing these things are indicating that they're traveling extremely fast with no noise. The next is low observability. UFOs seem to have the ability to avoid detection, such as they can cloak themselves from radar seemingly and or visual instruments. Sometimes when they are detected, they'll just suddenly disappear. And then the fifth observable is transmedium travel. Some UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena or unidentified anomalous phenomenon seem to travel effortlessly between space, air, and water. And that means they can withstand huge range of pressures. So, what's also interesting about that is if you are a fan of the show The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, you'll be familiar that they have actually captured on video orbs of light moving through the air and then into the rocky mesa and then out from the ground back into the air again. So not just transmedium between airspace and water, but seemingly also through solid land. So that's the, I'm done with quoting Mr. Elizondo there, but to go back to what Senator Grassley had said, this, if this is a near peer, this is a serious situation. So I just respectfully, I just think like that there's just no way that what we're seeing are surveillance drones from near peers, unless of course they're not our near peers, they're our superiors. And if they have this technology, then so far as we're aware, and so far as Lou Elizondo is aware, and so far as other whistleblowers are aware, they have exceeded United States aerospace technological capabilities to such an extent that they would really have they would have leapfrogged us in terms of technology. So that's one of the posts on my blog that you can read more about. I also want to highlight my post. I have this clip from Inside Edition embedded into one of my blog posts. It's Barack Obama on Inside Edition talking about his experience in the presidency, learning about the UFO topic. As mentioned, this clip is available for free on YouTube. I'm just including the audio here for the listener's sake.
What does former President Barack Obama know about UFOs?
When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air.
He was asked about the UFO frenzy in the wake of that explosive 60-minute story on Navy pilots who've seen things they just can't explain.
It's rotating. My gosh. Oh, going against the wind. Look at that thing, dude.
Obama revealed to James Corden he was eager to find out about real close encounters when he became president.
Truth is that when I came into office, I asked, right? I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where we're keeping the alien specimens in spaceship? They did a little bit of research, and the answer was no.
But that doesn't mean we're alone in the universe.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
And now that UFOs are being taken more seriously, more people are coming forward with their own sightings. Shaquille O'Neal told Jimmy Kimmel he's certain he's seen a UFO.
With all the lights, and it was spinning, and it just and took off, and everything happened in less than 5 seconds, and we all looked at each other, was like, and I know that it was a UFO. I don't care what anybody says.
You never told anybody about that?
No, you're the first person I told, because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. But
Right.
Okay, so that was a clip from Inside Edition that I do have embedded in my blog. But I mean, you heard it from former President Barack Obama's own voice that we have video of things in the skies that we cannot explain or identify. That's significant. I think in the past, the U.S. government's stance was to debunk sightings of unidentified anomalous phenomenon. In fact, listeners will probably be aware of the television series Project Blue Book, based on the actual Project Blue Book that the U.S. government conducted in the 1950s and 60s, I believe it was, which was the chief scientist was a civilian named J. Allen Hynek, who was an astronomer, as I recall. He very enigmatic character. I have a lot of respect for him, and I think I would invite the listener to do their research about him. It's very interesting because he's the one who's notoriously cited as having explained some of the UFO sightings as swamp gas. And what's interesting is, from my perspective and understanding, he over time went from being sort of a skeptic who just looked for the reasons to whatever to explain away people's experiences in the most reasonable manner possible, to at the very least, I think, recognizing that there was a real phenomenon, something was really going on, and that's my perspective. I'd invite the listener to do their own research about Dr. Hynek. He's written some books. In fact, let me pull up his Wikipedia page just so that I can direct you towards some of his publications. Just one moment. So he wrote The Close Encounters Man, How One Man Made the World Believe in UFOs, The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry, The Edge of Reality, A Progress Report on the Unidentified Flying Objects with Jacques Vallée, The Hynek UFO Reports, and Night Siege, The Hudson Valley UFO Sightings with Philip Imbrogno and Bob Pratt. But you can look on his there's a Wikipedia page about him that's informative, and so I direct your attention to that. But to go back to my purpose and goal for my blog, I would invite the listeners, to give this topic some reasonable scrutiny. Read about it yourself. If you're someone who haven't read, if you've somehow come across my blog and you haven't read much about the topic of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, please refer to episode 1 when I talk about some of the books that I've read and recommend for this topic. You could also read about Dr. Hynek. I recommend the television program Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And then I just want to point out that I have not been given any remuneration. I'm not receiving anything, haven't been asked to endorse any of these things. They're just they're media and literature that I have personally consumed regarding this topic and found to be of high quality with compelling documentation. So I encourage you to look into it. And then when you look into it, if you feel like there's something there, I'd encourage you to reach out to your congresspeople and senators. And as a side note, you should be reaching out to your congresspeople, senators, and elected officials about all of the concerns you have about the U.S. government. We really, as a populace, should be involved with communicating our will to the elected officials, not just through voting on occasion, but also through communicating with them by means of email or contacting their office. But specifically about the UAP phenomenon, I would encourage you to contact your congresspeople, contact your senators, contact the president, and ask for disclosure. Some people might say that there's no disclosure because there's nothing to be disclosed, and that's a possibility. I recognize that. Maybe the U.S. government honestly and sincerely has no idea what's going on. However, after what I've read with regard to the books that I've mentioned, Witnesses to Roswell, Imminent by Lou Elizondo, and I've watched News Nation reports with whistleblowers like David Grush and Jake Barber, who were brought forward by Ross Coulthart. I just am left really believing that the government is not being entirely forthright with the information they have access to. I recognize there's probably some heavily compartmentalized, classified information that there honestly may be some elected officials who are just not read into these programs. They may simply be unaware, and so there's some plausible deniability in that respect. But I think there are people who know things that for whatever reason are not forthcoming. And I don't think that's right. I know from a technological standpoint, they don't have to reveal all the details of how these things work if we know how they work, or what they can do if we know what they can do. But just the knowledge of our shared humanity in the face of a non-human intelligence that's interacting with us, I think is a reasonable disclosure that people deserve to be aware of and deserve to know. And then that goes back to the purpose of this podcast, which is to help with preserving faith in the face of such a disclosure. How will people respond when and if the government chooses to be more forthright about the information they have with regard to non-human intelligence interacting with mankind? Are we going to abandon our faith? Will we decide that we believe more in non-human intelligences than we believe in historical representations of God? And should we? Will we? I think these are questions we should ask. It is somewhat. It's been perplexing and challenging as I've poured through literature about this topic. There are aspects to the topic that I find terrifying, paradigm shifting. And so I'll warn you ahead of time that if you take a deep dive into these things, expect that your worldview, may be challenged. But I think that most people want to know the truth. They want to feel that they know their place in the universe and in this world. And I think having all the available information that we can receive will help us to be free. The scripture of Judeo-Christian theologies talks about truth and says, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. And if we're ignorant or kept in ignorance, then we're being kept in bondage. And I don't think the government has the right to do that. As Americans, it's a government by the people, for the people, and of the people. And we can communicate with our elected officials to remind them of that, and to remind them that any information that they have really belongs to the people of the United States of America. I know there might be occasionally credible national security concerns, but I would direct your attention to Lou Elizondo, who's made statements about what's appropriate to be classified and not classified, and he's more qualified than me to paint that picture. But the knowledge of there being non-human intelligence does not seem to be something that's reasonable for that to be withheld from the populace at large. So I've talked a lot today about my blog. I do invite you to go and see it. Again, there's no advertising on it, so enjoy. I hate going to websites and it's like there's so many pop-up ads and different advertisements that you can't even navigate the pages. But that's not going to happen on my website because there's no advertising. I just pay for it myself. But in the end, what I would ask is, I'm not making money off it, but I would ask that you give consideration to the things that I'm sharing. Think about what that means for you. And I would invite you to choose, I'm not trying to set myself up as a light or anything because I'm not, but I certainly believe in the power of faith and the importance of faith. And so I would say, choose to bolster your faith, choose to explore your faith more fully in the face of some of these claims about non-human intelligence and anomalous phenomenon. And then please contact your elected officials and encourage them to have more transparency with the American people, or to demand from the Pentagon and the Department of Defense more transparency. The taxpayers are paying for any research that's being done. The taxpayers are paying for any hardware that's being generated or created, or any scientific discoveries that can be made related to this. And so we deserve to reap the benefits of that. That's our investment as taxpayers of the United States. So I believe that we deserve to have to reap the fruits of those endeavors. So please contact your officials. You don't need to feel embarrassed. It's not like they take detailed, what's your name, what's your phone number, where do you work? We're going to, there's nothing like that. Every time I've contacted to be honest, anytime I've contacted my elected official's office personally, they seem more disinterested about anything I say than riled up or concerned, and so, but I think that the more they hear from people, the more they'll be inclined to take it to the actual elected leaders and be like, yeah, people are really pushing for this. They want transparency. They want to know what's going on. So please do that. Please enjoy the other episodes of this podcast, and you can reach me by email at blogger@uapactionplan.com. So blogger is blogger at uapactionplan.com. And I'd invite you to email me if you have any thoughts or questions or concerns. Also, I'm excited to have more guests on my show. As I mentioned, our next episode will have a guest. We're currently in the process of getting a podcast guest agreement with another guest who's indicated a willingness to come on the show. And we're trying to set a date for the interview. But if you know people that would like to be on the show and have a reason and willingness to share with others their thoughts about the intersection of faith and spirituality and anomalous phenomenon, they would be edifying and beneficial for the listeners, to reach out to me. So it's blogger, blogger, at uapactionplan.com. Again, this is Matt. This is the podcast Space for Faith, where we talk about the intersection of anomalous phenomenon and faith, with the hope that we can strengthen one another's faith, especially in the face of any discoveries, revelations, or disclosures that may occur in the near or long term. So I hope you have a great day, and I appreciate you listening. Please check out my blog and check out the other episodes. Please leave us a review and maybe some comments. Also, if you come to my blog, you're welcome to leave some comments about the post there. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening. Editing was performed by your host, Matt. Web hosting is by Spotify for podcasters. The intro music was Here For You by artist Ketsa. And the outro music was Quiet Outro by Rozakal. Both are licensed free to use with attribution and were found on Free Music Archive.